Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee represents a big landmark for the series. The legendary monster catching games have always been very set in their ways. They've slowly evolved, refined and tweaked over the last 20 years, but it's pretty much been a if it ain't broke, don't fix it type of thing. Let's Go, however, is the biggest shake-up yet. While not considered a part of the mainline series, this Let's Go release is genuinely the closest game that we've come to being considered one. Taking heavy inspiration from the mobile phenomenon Pokemon Go, this is a more casual reimagining of the original release, red, green, blue, and more closely yellow. We're going to find out how it stacks up, is it suitable for a new audience, will hardcore fans still have something to enjoy? I'm Jordan from SwitchWatch, and let's find out. Before we do, be sure to subscribe for more great Nintendo Switch content. We work so hard on reviews, gameplays, and fun features, so it'll be well worth it, I promise. The story for Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee is a very familiar one. Starting off in your sleepy hometown, your main protagonist has reached their coming of age in this gaming world. As is customary for the citizens of this world, the young adults can go on an adventure to become the Pokemon champion by capturing and then battling the cheery creatures that inhabit it. Along the adventure, you'll meet a fair few folk who you can help out, as well as hinder the dastardly Team Rocket who want all the Pokemon for themselves and take over the world and stuff. Despite a deep-rooted darkness, the story and concept of the series has mostly been shielded by a bright and colourful, cheery atmosphere that is especially present here, where they are expecting a more younger audience present than ever. It's all a bit too nice. Long gone are the days when your rivals were actually that, either bitter or just full-on jerks. Here we have the happy-go-lucky rival who probably gives you a high five after you demolish them for the 5th time and promises to be best friends forever. It really could do with a little bit of edge instead of the unbearable cuddly cushion that it is. Being a remake too, it provides very little twists or turns. There are a few additional cutscenes and tidbits to tie little bits of the world together, but nothing major. It's a fine enough adventure for youngsters though, and I'm sure there will be lots of the same imaginative fun that I had 20 years ago for a new generation of wannabe Pokemon masters. Pokemon is Pokemon. You and your faithful set of allies, whether it be James the Eevee or any of my other Pokemon named after SwitchWatch team members, travel together on a merry adventure, capturing and battling others like you. If you've played a mainline Pokemon game before, however, then Let's Go may provide the greatest shock to you. Without wanting to be too blunt, they've ripped out the age-old, time-honored gameplay and streamlined it to bring Pokemon to you in a different angle. It's everything you know about the original Pokemon games, but in a refocused way. Taking a lot of inspiration from Pokemon Go, Let's Go has given massive attention to the capturing aspect instead of the battling, which really took a hold of the series by the hardcore fans and the older series veterans. I mean, let's face it, with the original tagline of "Gotta catch 'em all," that was always the spirit of the game wrapped up in a JRPG. They've really trimmed the fighting aspect though, which is possibly for the better or for the worse depending on your outlook. Battles are present in the form of trainer battles, but now there are no random Pokemon encounter battles. I think even the most stubborn of fans will admit that the random battles often slowed the games down horrendously at times. I know what you'll shout though, that's what Pokemon has always been and always should be. Not necessarily. I mean, the pace and flow of this entry is so much better than the games before it. You feel like you're free and not walking through mud trying to get from A to B. The difficulty hasn't suffered either. The random encounters were never the tough part of an already easy series. It was always the trainer battles and gym leaders that provided the small semblance of a test for adult gamers. I feel like they are treated almost in the same way here. To make up for the lost random encounters, your experience points and Pokemon levels are bolstered by the capturing of wild Pokemon, indeed even more so by capturing than battling. I'm not sure if it's entirely balanced out in terms of gameplay reward. I guess it does feel like there's less effort to get to your destinations, so I do think they could have found some more middle ground where amongst the scurrying wild Pokemon there could have been some extra aggressive ones every now and again who will battle you if you come near them. I think this could have brought some togetherness in what always would be a divisive game no matter how good it turned out. There are a few special Pokemon like that here and there, you can probably guess which ones, but I feel they could have been put into the wild Pokemon too. Battles themselves are pretty much how they've always been, except looking a lot better. Generally a 1v1 battle with up to 5 Pokemon in reserve. Each of your Pokemon has up to 4 moves they can use to take the opponents out before they take you out. Considering Pokemon types and move types is important for crushing your opponents. I mean, I feel a bit daft explaining Pokemon battles, but knowing the age range of the vast majority of our viewers, it's not out of the question that some of you were a little older when the Pokemon phenomenon started. I won't say any more than that, because I'd be here all day explaining a lot of the hidden depth and strategy, especially when it comes to playing against real people. But just know that it's incredibly simple, even for youngsters to understand, but it has a lot of depth should you want to delve that far into it. I mean, many of the mainline Pokemon games could be considered esports at this point, if they've not already been so. So anyways, onto the capturing aspect, which is actually the main focus this time around. When wandering around the environments in the roads between cities and destinations, wild Pokemon will be skulking around, appearing and disappearing. This is unlike previous games as they appear on the overworld now, and that is a welcome change. It brings more believability to the universe for such a simple addition. Making contact with them will initiate the capture sequence. This is when Nintendo decided to go full gimmicky, as they often try to do so. Motion controls are at the forefront of the experience here, whereby you gesture a throwing motion with the Joy-Con in order to capture the Pokemon before you. There is a little bit of skill involved in this process. For a start, you actually need to aim. If you swing wildly, the Pokeball will fly off to nowhere. It's also timing based too. Timing your throws perfectly as a circular indicator decreases can give your capture attempt a boost. From nice to great to excellent, you can increase your chances of success by a lot. The timing does take a little bit of getting used to, but once you've thrown 20 or so Pokeballs, you'll get the hang of it. Still, it can be a little finicky about which grades it awards you. There were plenty of times I thought, according to the timing circle, that my throws were perfect, but I didn't get a grade at all. It just seemed odd, but it's not a huge problem. Some Pokemon are obviously more difficult to capture than others, and this is where my initial trepidation of it being too baby-like went away. There are many Pokemon out there that will refuse to lay down and be caught. Some will flap or run around the screen, making it difficult to get it on target, as well as intermittently taking a swipe at you to repel any Pokeballs thrown at that time. This is where you'll have to feed them berries as bait. One will calm them down, stopping them from going nuts all over the screen, while another will slow down the timing circle, as well as bringing them down a capture difficulty level. Green timing circle means they're easy, while yellow and red means they are increasingly more difficult. While there is a slight bit of mindlessness to it all, after a few hours, you'll lock horns with some fairly tough beasts to capture. It took me ages to get a Clefairy, and that's really early on. I kind of wish there wasn't just so much constant capturing though. It makes those tougher captures less significant when you're capturing your 5th Pidgey or your 6th Vulpix. You'll be catching a lot of Pokemon. It's not entirely necessary due to the easy nature of the game, but when they're there and you've got like 100 Pokeballs spare, you think, why not? To combat that overload of Pokemon in your box, you can start carting them off by the dozen at a time to Professor Oak for him to study, or something. As a reward, you'll gain candies that can increase the stats of your Pokemon. I didn't use this too often because I didn't find it necessary, but it'll be great for kids who need a helping hand. What I did find astonishing is that Pokemon Let's Go is played entirely with one Joy-Con held vertically. Basically half a controller. It's almost refreshing in a way, and it didn't feel compromised at all. It may be a bit niche to say this, but these games are perfect for some disabled gamers out there. Now this is only for docked mode, however. In portable mode, you still have your standard control setup. Catching is done with a touch of the button, but aiming is done with the gyro controls. It's less gimmicky for sure, and maybe the way many of you will prefer to play it. I found it much easier too. I should probably talk about the third controller option, which comes in the form of the Pokeball accessory. Sold separately or in a bundle or something, this little controller assists or at least enhances the immersion in the catching part of the game. Sadly, I didn't have a unit to actually review for this video, so I can't tell you much about it, but it is out there. So you battle and capture your way to victory across Kanto, earning gym badges, and then making a run for the Pokemon champion. It's slick and expertly refined as an experience. It's almost as though they've done this a few times before. It's still as enjoyable as it was 20 years ago, and it will always be full of charm. There are a few cute things here to really hem in the more child-oriented aspects of this release. While nothing exactly new, you can pet your main Pokemon, whether that be Eevee or Pikachu. You can even give them a few new hairstyles and dress them up with accessories, even coordinating your fashion with your main character. There's even a 2-player mode, a first when it comes to Pokemon, I think. I do think this is going to be used by kids or those playing with kids rather than just adults alone. The second player can join in anytime and run around over the world with you. It's a little limited and hardly the massive online multiplayer Pokemon game we've all dreamed about, but it's a start. The second player can join in and help out with catching Pokemon as well as in battles. It makes the game even more easy as the Pokeballs thrown combine in their power if they synchronize up, making capturing far more easy. and battles become a joke, as you can go 2v1. The second player takes the second Pokemon in your lineup to use. Again, this is only going to be used by children, but I can see that being a ton of fun for families, especially siblings who can play together. So far, so very promising, but it's not without an oversight or two though. Firstly, there's no Pro Controller support to speak of, possibly due to the Joy-Con usage during capturing, but that's not a full explanation as you can just use the buttons anyway in handheld. It's downright peculiar. I'm not a Pro Controller user much myself, but I feel for those who are. I hate to bring this up as a negative thing, but it really is too easy. I understand that Pokemon games are for children, but it's entirely possible for Game Freak to include a hard mode for veteran gamers that remixes enemy levels, Pokemon locations, enemy tactics, and so on. At least make the game needed to be played in an awakened state. Not like now where you can really play the game half comatose. At least for the first 10 or 15 hours. Only really late does the game bring any kind of challenge, and even then it's nothing fans of the series can't handle. I should mention that there is online play for Let's Go, which will certainly please the hardcore fans and will probably make you get it regardless of what you actually feel about the simplified core game. You can trade as well as battle, although you will need to be paying up for Nintendo's online service. I couldn't really test it prior to this review going out, but has there ever been any issues with Pokemon Online? I think you can safely say it will run perfectly fine. Visually, the game is fantastic, especially compared to what has come before. Sure, it's not the exceptional level of the Pokemon game, but that was hardly ever going to happen for the first time around. It's bright, colourful, almost to a fault. Indeed, although I can wholeheartedly say it looks great, it's almost too sickly sweet for me. I would have preferred something a little grittier, but again, that was hardly ever going to happen. This is not going to look as fantastic as the Detective Pikachu movie, and yes, I said that. It looks awesome. It's far more cinematic than it's ever been, some nice camera cuts, directing here and there. Nothing major, but it's a big step up in that regards. The attention to detail is great too, just seeing all the posters and paintings on the wall makes this the most believable Pokemon world yet. As far as performance goes, normally for a massive Nintendo title you don't have to worry, but the 3DS Pokemon games were incredibly taxing on that system, but I'm happy to report the extra grunt of the Switch has taken away all the worries you may have. There may have been a frame or two lost in a couple of the cities, but nothing that hindered the experience even slightly. The music is great as you'd expect from any Pokemon game. There's a lot of familiar, almost pop culture themes throughout this game, obviously remixes of the original score. They add a lot of production value to classic tunes that many of you will have so ingrained in your memory from your childhood. There's nothing much else to say in this regard, it's the classics we love just updated. There's no voice acting sadly aside from the odd Pokemon call, and this is something the franchise should address sooner rather than later I think. It just feels a little empty when characters are talking now. For value, well, Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee comes in at a full fat $59.99 in the US and £49.99 in the UK. It's more expensive than what Pokemon games have usually gone for, and that might irk some consumers, especially considering the viewpoint of those feeling it's a watered down experience. There's enough budget and value in this one though, and I think that even the most ardent of gamer would concede that the Pokemon mainline games have always been exceptional value for money, and this is no exception. I would suggest going for a cheaper physical version though, and if you're going to be buying this game anyway, then consider supporting our show by using our Amazon shop from the link in the description. It just helps us out a little if you're planning on buying it anyways. Overall, Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee is a fine game. In many ways, I like it more than the usual Pokemon offering, and I say that as a fan of the series, but as one who buys every other game due to having my fill. The streamlined mechanics were somewhat of a breath of fresh air, and I actually enjoyed the fat cutting of the lack of random battles, and it did a commendable job in making what initially seemed to be like a mundane, repetitive capturing mechanic into something that I enjoyed. Along with the story and presentation, it's excellent, although a bit too sickly sweet and lacking in some ambition in a few aspects. Had this not been a remake but something new and standalone, it could have been better for me, as I felt as though I was treading on already well-trodden ground, almost to a point of apathy at times. New fans and kids will love this though, and is 100% the best starting point for any young child to get into Pokemon. Hardcore fans may be disappointed, casual fans will probably like it, and I think young kids will love it. And that's alright guys. It could have been more ambitious and more daring in certain regards, but I thoroughly enjoyed it, an 8.5 out of 10. I wasn't expecting to enjoy this as much as I did. Thank you ever so much for watching this review, guys. If you liked it, then don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Now I suggest you head over to watch one of our other first-party Nintendo reviews just to get a little reminder of how great Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze is. I'll see you over there, guys. Cheers.